A very good evening to you. You're watching Primetime News on News First. I'm Chaturanga and joining us for the first time on Primetime News is Zeenat Musafir. Good evening to you, Zeenat.
Good evening, Chaturanga, and good evening to all our viewers. Let's first take a look at today's headlines.
Commission Sabhave Sabhavati Ediate. November Masi Namvindai, December Name Yatre Janadipati Ornetian, Kang Me Chanda Yuti Benetamang Ilapena. Eke Patsolawat.
Police officers who devoted their lives for the fight against drugs commended. Ravi K agrees to implement the long-term power generation plan. Who benefited from the fall army worm infestation? The cabinet will give immediate approval to import 1,200 metric tons of corn to Sri Lanka worth 670 million rupees.
Taking a look at those stories in detail now, the award ceremony to felicitate police officers who played a vital role in combating drug trafficking in Sri Lanka was held today under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena at the Sukata Dasa Indoor Stadium in Colombo.
Janadipati Prashansa 2019.
Approximately 1,034 police officers who were actively engaged in dangerous drug raids and drug eradication activities during the period January 14, 2015 to January 14, 2019 were felicitated today. The awards were presented under 3 categories and accordingly 15 officers were awarded with the Presidential Medal of Police Gallantry, 59 officers with Sri Lanka Police Gallantry medals, and the other officers received Janadipati Prashansa certificates.
I want to very clearly state that the time when the racketeers in the village had the power to transfer the OIC of the village the way they want will be changed. I will issue an order. If a police officer is being transferred, the reason behind the transfer should be mentioned in the letter. Drug racketeers should receive the capital punishment. We speak of human rights in Sri Lanka, but the country is being destroyed. Those who speak of human rights do not speak of eradicating drugs in the country. In the recent past, I stated that drug traffickers must be punished with the death penalty. I requested for the relevant reports. It's been a year now and they say the reports are not available. The moment I issue this notice, prisoners who had received the death penalty but had not appealed also start filing appeals. Now, they say everyone has appealed and there is no one left to be executed. I hope to submit a cabinet paper tomorrow for the establishment of a rehabilitation authority to victims of drug addiction. Upon cabinet approval, I hope to implement this in the near future.
Chairman of the Election Commission, Mahinda Deshapriya, expressed the following views during a media briefing held at the Election Commission office.
How delayed is the provincial council elections? The Eastern, North Central and Sabaragamuwa provincial council elections have been delayed by 16 months. Central, North and Northwestern provincial elections have been delayed by 4 months. If the Parliament, ministers, citizens of the country or the media go to the Supreme Court against the delay of these elections, the Elections Commission will point that out as delaying the elections is against democracy. But everyone says that we are not interested. The Honourable Speaker appointed a 5-member committee. It was under the auspices of the Prime Minister on the 28th of August 2018. The committee was given 2 months. They had 2 meetings, as far as I know. They did not implement any program. If we go before courts, we will fearlessly express our stance. Some ask us why the Commission doesn't go to courts. Who are we going against? How can we go against the government? Attorney General will be the respondent then, and the Attorney General will also have to represent us. Professor Hool went before the courts as a person. He understood that in the constitution it says that the president cannot dissolve parliament. Where does it say that the voting should be held in this particular way? The provincial council in the Galle district has not been dissolved. I have registered myself in the southern province. So what can I do as the chairman of the commission? We cannot do anything if the presidential elections are held early, but hold the presidential elections between the 9th of November and the 9th of December. If not, I will resign. Mahinda Deshapriya is a citizen of this country, and Mahinda Deshapriya is also hurt about postponing the elections. We have held discussions. All parties say that the elections should be held. Some political parties also say that we hold the elections based on our agendas. Mahinda Deshapriya will never occupy this seat to carry out other people's agendas.
එක එක කාගේවත් ඇජෙන්ඩා වලට ඡන්දෙ තියන්න මහින්ද දේශප්‍රිය මේකේ වාඩි වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
මම හිතනවාද තතුමා ඉල්ලා අස්වෙනවයි කියන කරන අද ප්‍රකාශය يعني මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ඉන්න මේ දේශපාලන පක්ෂ සත පහකටවත්
ගණන් නොගත්තර කමක්.
It doesn't matter even if they don't care. I can sleep peacefully then. There are headlines saying the presidential elections and the provincial council elections are to be held on the same day. They should first speak to us to see if holding two elections on the same day is practical. You don't need an elections commission if they say that the elections are held based on political party agendas.
කියලා ඡන්ද තීරණය කරනවා නම් මැතිවරණ කොමිෂන් සභාවක් අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. අපේ ගමේ කියනවා වගේ මේ දැස්මක්කට.
Newsfirst, together with the Ministry of Agriculture, have taken steps to commence an island-wide program along with the general public to eradicate the Sena caterpillar menace. The pre-awareness program was held today at the Service Training Institute in Gannoruwa, Peradeniya. This program aims at educating those currently suffering from the Sena caterpillar epidemic. Members of the Newsfirst team were briefed regarding this matter by officers attached to the Ministry of Agriculture. They continue to bring samples of caterpillars to the Department of Agrarian Services. The biggest threat is that the caterpillar sample they bring is left behind at the department. When we ask them to take back the caterpillar sample, they simply throw it into the nearest drain. These caterpillar samples then start to spread. Once you commence your journey, this matter must be informed to the public. The program will commence tomorrow in Ampara, Monragala and Anuradhapura districts. Meanwhile, the Sena caterpillar has been found in paddy cultivations in the Nochagam area in the Anuradhapura district. I took a sample of this caterpillar to the agriculture research officer. He said that this is the Sena caterpillar and my cultivation should be destroyed. How can I destroy my cultivation? I live by this for 6 months. At present, farmers have sown paddy in approximately 2,000 acres of land, while more than half of this has been devastated by the Sena caterpillar epidemic. Please provide us with some sort of relief. Tell them to halt the salaries of ministers and support us financially. Farmers are now helpless. They only think of themselves. Meanwhile, the Sena caterpillar epidemic was subject to discussion at a media briefing today. Cabinet papers reveal that there are other suspicious activities taking place. In a rush, cabinet approval was given to disburse 670 million rupees to import 12,000 metric tons of corn to manufacture 3 posher. Cabinet approval was given to an institution named KSG to import all 12,000 metric tons. Who is KSG? Doesn't Sri Lanka have other institutions that import corn? What about a tender system? After all, this is the Yahapalne government. My friend Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne and Minister Harrison. It was these two ministers who are carrying on this operation.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe expressed these views on a new constitution at a press briefing held in Kalutara.
Now what are they saying? They are saying that we are dividing the country and that we are bringing in a new constitution. We will not divide the country nor introduce a new constitution. Everyone got together and formed the Constitutional Council and formed a committee with the participation of everyone. Everyone could discuss there and come to a common consensus. We submit various reports submitted by everyone to the Constitutional Council. We take the advice of specialists and the political parties as well. It is not my job to make constitutions. 2/3 of the parliament must agree for a constitution to pass. According to what the chief prelate of the Malwadu sect said, it doesn't look like that is possible. That is true. It does not look like a constitution will be passed here. This is not a draft constitution that has been presented. It will only pass if a 2/3 majority is received.
The matter was taken up at several press conferences today.
Now we saw Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe say that this is not a constitution that has been presented to Parliament and that the TNA has agreed to a unitary state. Prime Minister, please stop lying at least now. We depicted earlier that the title of this document says Constitution. It is something we said from the start. What did MP Sumandiran say? He said we do not accept the term unitary. I can see better because I can see with 4 eyes. Last week, it is when I was in the Constitutional Assembly that the Prime Minister submitted a draft of the Constitution. If he was not involved, why did he submit it? This is why you should not use your name in the birth certificates of other people's children. The Prime Minister may not have put this together, but it is possible that M.A. Sumandiran, Jayampati Vikramaratne and lawyer Suren Fernando are behind this. Regardless, the Prime Minister will be responsible for this. If the Prime Minister is not, I dare him to come into Parliament and say that he is not behind this document and that he withdraws it until and unless the true owner of this document comes forward to present it.
ලේඛනය ඉවත් කරගන්න කියලා අපි අගමැතිතුමාට අභියෝග කරනවා.
The Prime Minister makes a baffling statement. He says that there is an understanding among our country's parties to have a unitary state. But with this, they add the Tamil word Orumittanadu. Orumittanadu does not mean unitary. If they truly mean it, they must remove this word. MP Sambandhan has addressed his group and said that the constitution will have a federal basis. Now, in such a background, can we accept what the Prime Minister says? If the Prime Minister accepts what the Malwatu Chief Prelate said, he should discontinue this process and call for elections. He is the head of the steering committee. He is the one who made the proposal. He does all the summoning. So how can he say he has nothing to do? If he says so, I feel he no longer has a right to be the Prime Minister of this country.
Discussions are afoot about the aircraft carrier USS John C. Stennis sailing within close proximity to Sri Lanka, receiving supplies at the Bandar Naik International Airport as part of a temporary cargo transfer initiative in Sri Lanka. Certain groups allege whether there are attempts to establish a US military base center in Trincomalee. Views were expressed regarding this at several press conferences today.
We are carrying out a journey to end up as a tool that belongs to the USA under the leadership of Ranil Wickremesinghe, Yankee Wiki. When the former ambassador Atul Keshap came here, he had to provide the objective of coming here in writing. He had said obtaining Trincomalee as a US base was one of the main objectives. The naval chief in charge of Asia Pacific came to the country and held a media briefing and said it is moving forward successfully. John Pilger, a war journalist, in a report on the Washington Post had said with a map that there are 400 US bases around China and that there is a gap in the south, and since India and Sri Lanka have intervened in this, that gap has been filled. These matters are not known by these groups. Only the US Air Force is aware of these things. This is the first time Sri Lanka contributed to a fleet of a superpower. They have reached an agreement to establish a US base in Sri Lanka without consent of the President. The President is unaware. The Defence Cooperation Office, established in the US Embassy, is responsible for all of this. The consequences of letting the American army into the country has been depicted by Panama with blood and tears. The people in the UNP might not understand what we say if we speak in Sinhalese. We have to warn the government. If you do not heed to this, the country will be in trouble. Yesterday, a large aeroplane had arrived at the BIA and were unloading goods. The Sri Lanka police, the customs and the army has no permission to even look into this. I remember about the history of the UNP. In 2001 and 2004, the MOU signed between the LTTE and Ranil Wickremesinghe through this high-tech communications equipment was taken to Iranamadu through the BIA. This is similar to that. Back then it was given without the approval of the police, army or even the TRC. It was the same Prime Minister back then. It is the same Prime Minister at present.
I'm joining you from Studio 3 at News First with a special update regarding this situation. Now, if you look at the map behind me, you can see several key locations in our country being marked with flags of various other countries. Especially these three projects that you see with the Chinese flag were projects that were given away during the previous government. But the latest additions to the map here starts from somewhere around here. We see the Indian flag, we see the Indian flag in Kantale, we also see the Indian flag atop the Mattala airport. Discussions are afoot, and as of late we also saw paper reports speaking about the mineral sands project in Polmude being given to Japan. We saw paper articles recently as well. Now, what is the latest development with regard to these key locations of our country being given away to other countries, be it because the government is unaware, be it because the government doesn't care, be it because the government wants money? For whatever reason, these key locations have been going away from Sri Lanka. Now, the latest development, as we just heard, was an attempt to set up a military base here in the Trincomalee area. We see this marked with the US flag. Now, you remember, anyone who reads up on the international situation pertaining to the US, anyone who watches any basically Hollywood movie with regard to the military, you would understand the problem which follows with the United States of America. You remember what happened to Iraq, you would remember what happened to Venezuela, you would remember what happened to most of the Middle Eastern countries, you would remember what happened to even Panama, which was just brought up by Uday Gammanpilla a short while ago, who was a parliamentarian. Now, these things are, the people of the country, the general public are aware of these situations. We have heard the story of the camel's nose. So, is this something similar that is going to happen to us? In addition to this, don't the people, the people in authority, people holding power, not understand why Sri Lanka is actually called a location with strategic importance? Why is Sri Lanka identified as a country that has geographical importance? They are not just saying this. Sri Lanka actually does have a significant amount of geographical and strategic importance when it comes to the map of the world. We see when warships want to pass through, we see that it's passing through waters that are very close proximity to the Sri Lankan shore. So these things highlight from time to time that Sri Lanka is a location with a lot of strategic importance, and to what we see, the government and the people in power and these cabinet of ministers, the ministers have failed to understand that Sri Lanka is a place with a lot of strategic importance. We have to remember the fact that the country has been broken into pieces and been sold away or given out to various parties, various countries, according to the whims and fancies of the politicians who are holding on to power. Now, if this is the latest development, we should bring this to the attention of the president. The president is the only person, if these things are being carried out in the country, the president is the only person who can take action. We cannot wait for the president to maybe read things up on a newspaper, but we hope that the president would take action regarding what is happening. The president would take action against such actions where we would see the whole country, the whole map of Sri Lanka, these strategically important locations that are within the country holding a country flag of a different country. We can only hope to see that the president will take action and this situation will come to a controllable situation and will come to an end. It's back to the main studio where Zeenath is standing by.
Thank you, Chaturanga. In other local news, the Sri Lanka National Peace Council held an interreligious convention in Colombo today.
The conference was organized by the Sri Lanka National Peace Council with the sponsorship of US aid.
Ours is a multicultural, multi-religious country. By that I do not mean that we must lose our identity. We have a history, we have a culture and a religion. We have to respect that. We know America as one of the most powerful nations in the world. They had big problems with their president and even within their parliament. But their institutions help to resolve it. Even we want strong institutions. The constitution and the law must reduce the powers possessed by individuals. Following the introduction of Buddhism, we were brought up in a certain way. This was something in our cultural group came from outside, damaged what is ours. When they came together with the majority of this country, they were accepted as our people. Following the end of the era of the Sinhalese monarch, the Buddhist priests even reached out to Kandasamy. They called them in and said, "Listen here, Kandasamy. From today you are a Sinhalese and your name is Sri Vikrama Rajasinghe and you are now our king. We are a country where such situations truly played a big role."
The United States government, in fact, has worked with Sri Lanka to advance its development goals for more than 60 years, providing assistance to improve the lives of Sri Lankans across the country, Sri Lankans of every group, of every race, of every religion. In fact, just through our development agency alone, we've invested more than $2 billion over that period. And in particular, we have worked very closely with the National Peace Council for many years, and we appreciate the strong partnership.
The 161st model village constructed under the new Udagammana housing project was vested with the people in Thambankeni, Porathiupattu.
The model village named as Anandapuram was vested with the public under the auspices of Deputy Leader of the UNP and the Housing and Construction Minister Sajit Premadasa. The village consists of 25 houses with electricity, drinking water and infrastructure facilities. Many programs including presenting deeds to the owners were held at this event. I would like to say that our country has an unsuitable two-tongued political system. In this corrupted system, the leaders always try to deceive people of this country. The opposition leader one time says that he is a pure Buddhist. Then he goes to the Kataragama temple and worships the gods there. But when he comes out of the temple and meets the extremists who suggest that the Hindu temple should be destroyed and the statue of God should be destroyed, he aids that destruction as well.
The champion of the 2019 Green Energy competition was officially announced at the German embassy in Sri Lanka.
This program has been implemented with the objective of promoting green energy usage in the country by minimizing the use of fossil fuels. The event was held under the auspices of Minister Ravi Karunanayake. This is a new subject for me. I had many objections. Those objections may have been right or wrong, but we have to make bold political decisions here. If we don't make the right political decisions now, our future journey will be dark. We spend around 22 rupees and 73 cents to generate electricity, and on the other hand it is sold at 16 rupees and 32 cents per unit. So while knowing that this generates losses, if we are adding more to this burden, I consider that as committing a sin.
Hydropower is generated with the least possible cost of electricity generation at a cost of 2 rupees per unit in Sri Lanka. Around 10 rupees per unit is incurred to produce electricity using coal, while the cost of generating electricity using petroleum is between 25 to 30 rupees per unit. Although Sri Lanka uses coal to generate electricity, many other developing nations are now focusing on generating electricity using hydropower plants and renewable energy. As a developing country, shouldn't Sri Lanka implement its long-term generation plan while focusing on eco-friendly renewable energy or LNG power plants? I can proudly tell you that we will implement a program to generate electricity with the least possible cost soon. We will also come to a position where we can compete with the neighboring countries. Minister, we congratulate your efforts. Reports show that India and Japan have been given the responsibility of constructing LNG power plants in the country. But Japan and India do not produce liquefied natural gas, and these countries do not have energy resources. Why isn't the focus on countries that possess the required energy resources? Won't it reduce the cost of production? We request you to be mindful of this.
The joint agreement, which includes the increase of the daily wage of estate workers to 700 rupees, was signed at Temple Trees today.
The joint agreement, which determines the salaries of estate workers, expired last October. Despite several negotiations to form a new agreement took place between the relevant trade unions and plantation owners, no final agreement was made. Estate workers and several other groups staged several demonstrations demanding their daily wage to be increased to 1,000 rupees. During a discussion held between trade unions and estate owners, the basic daily wage to be increased to 700 rupees. However, the estate workers did not agree to this. Two trade unions and the Planters Association signed the agreement at Temple Trees today. Non-Cabinet Minister of Labour and Trade Union Relations Ravindra Samaravira, leader of the Ceylon Workers' Congress Arumugan Tondaman, General Secretary of the Ceylon National Estate Labourers Union Vadivel Suresh and several members of the Planters Association were present at the event. However, the Estate Trade Union Alliance did not sign the agreement. According to the new agreement, the basic daily wage of an estate worker is 700 rupees and will be paid an extra 40 rupees for each additional kilo of tea leaves plucked. Additionally, the agreement also includes that 105 rupees will be transferred daily to the EPF and ETF. Accordingly, trade unions state that the total daily wage of an estate worker is 855 rupees. As per an agreement signed in 2016, the estate workers' daily basic wage stood at 500 rupees. Additionally, the estate workers will be provided a daily wage with a fixed incentive of 30 rupees and an attendance incentive of 60 rupees and an additional production incentive of 140 rupees. A further 75 rupees was transferred to the EPF and ETF. Accordingly, the total daily wage stood at 805 rupees. The difference between the daily wages stated in the new agreement and the 2016 agreement is only 50 rupees.
We signed the agreement at Temple Trees this morning. Subsequently, we met the Prime Minister. A compromise is also required during discussions. We asked for 1000 rupees. However, the basic salary has been increased from 500 rupees to 700 rupees. There are some groups protesting against this. If there is anyone who could provide us with an amount higher than this, I will pledge my support to them. In another 3 months, we will receive the due salaries. Minister Navin Dissanayake will present a cabinet paper regarding this matter. I believe that this is a fair wage figure. I stated that I am ready to cast my vote in favour of the budget, if you all are ready to increase the daily wage to 1000 rupees. If this increase is not given by the 30th, I will resign from my ministerial position.
Isn't it better to resign from your post rather than making statements of this nature, feeding off membership fees as well as the problems of the estate workers?
We have received a reasonable solution. This is a decision taken on behalf of the people. The joint agreement is not an obstacle to hold decisions with the Minister of Plantation Industries. No revenge will be taken against the events that took place during the period of agreement. Police complaints will be withdrawn. We worshipped Ranil, asking him for an increase to wages to 1000 rupees. Is the government blind? The Minister of Labour is from the UNP. The Finance Minister is also from the UNP. The Minister of Plantation Industries is also from the UNP. Me and Tondaman immediately established a committee and held discussions with the current Prime Minister and the Secretary of the General Treasury.
Despite such remarks made by MP Vadivel Suresh, previously, at present, this parliamentarian is a state minister attached to the United National Party. We are not prepared to trust such parliamentarians who change political representations frequently, despite their claims that such decisions were reached for the sake of the people. It is absolutely clear through the actions of these politicians that they do not change parties to solve the problems of the people.
Moving on to some sports news, all-rounder Thisara Pereira has written a letter to CEO of Sri Lanka Cricket Ashley De Silva. The letter was written expressing his disappointment and concern for Sri Lanka Cricket as well as for himself as a senior player. The complete letter can be read on our website www.newsfirst.lk. The promotional activities of the Sports First Alliance Platinum Awards 2018 got underway for the 13th consecutive day today. The promotional activities took place at the D.S. Senanayake National School in Ampara. The inauguration ceremony of the promotional activities, which was held at the D.S. Senanayake National School, was attended by officials of the education sector and the officials of the Capital Maharaj Organization and Alliance. That's all the news we have for you this evening. It was a pleasure having you with us. Take care and good night.